Hey everyone, Mike here. Today I want to talk about IDS and IPS inside of NSX-T 3.0. It's something that I think is really cool and pretty innovative, honestly, and I've been waiting for this for a long time. So I want to talk about 5 reasons why I think IDS is something you should be looking at today. So if you're not familiar with the idea of an IDS, let me kind of break it down real quick for you. IDS stands for Intrusion Detection System. Basically, the idea goes like this. With a firewall, let's say I have an Apache web server. If I want to stop traffic to that, I can block, say, port 80, and no one will be able to get to my web server, which certainly does stop the bad guys, but it also stops all of the legitimate traffic. With an IDS, I can leave port 80 open, but I can actually inspect the packets coming on port 80 and make sure they're legitimate and they're not matching any known attack signatures. So with an IDS, the difference really between an IDS and an IPS, or intrusion prevention system, is that an IDS will simply notify me that an attack is going on, whereas an IPS will basically take action to stop the attack in flight. So that said, let me give you 5 reasons that I think that NSXT IDS is really cool and worth taking a look at. Reason number 1, IDS and NSXT is super easy. Let's just say this, if you're one of these guys, come on. Mom, give me a bagel. I'm working on the IDS. Bonus snack. Then trust me, you want IDS in NSXT. IDS in NSXT is super easy. Kind of the old way of doing things was I had an IDS sitting over here, and then I had all my firewall stuff over here, and I had other policy management tools here. So things were kind of segmented as far as how I managed it. In IDS and NSXT, you literally click a button to enable it. The beauty of this solution is that NSXT distributed firewalling is already analyzing traffic throughout the entire environment in the NSX domain. So when you add IDS on top of that, you're using the same NSXT manager that you used for all your firewalling and your networking. You're literally just clicking a button to enable it. Reason number 2, hardware costs. It is not cheap to have a dedicated IDS appliance sitting in the data center for a number of reasons. There's a cost of the hardware itself. There's the space it occupies, which costs something. There's the power, the cooling. You've got to have Johnny, the intern, go rack it, and you know he's gonna screw it up. There's a lot of places where having an actual hardware appliance is just not ideal. In a world of rapidly changing requirements and applications and things that we can't even predict a couple years out, it really makes sense to have as many functionality or as much functionality as you can bundled into software when possible versus a dedicated hardware appliance. And the reason I think is really that when it's done in software, you can make changes very quickly. It can be an update. It's kind of the same idea behind having an iPhone. We could just push app updates and call it a day. If we had a dedicated appliance, then now we have to actually upgrade the hardware in many cases to achieve new functionality. Reason number 3, it's super efficient to run IDS and NSXT, and here's why. It's fully distributed, so if you have 5 ESX hosts, then you have IDS on all of those hosts already within the NSX world. So if you add 5 more hosts, you also add IDS as well. So it's super efficient because now when traffic leaves the host, it doesn't have to be redirected to some hardware appliance sitting in the corner of your network over here. Instead, all of the intelligence happens within the host. Now, of course, if you're talking host to host, it has to leave the host to get to the other host, right? But it still doesn't have to hairpin to any special appliance and then back before making a decision. I like to think about it like this. You know, I like French onion dip. Who doesn't like French onion dip? If I want to get down on some French onion dip with some pretzels, then I don't want to have to throw it in my truck, get in there, put my seatbelt on, go past Johnny the intern on the street, running in the street instead of the sidewalk, get down to my local store, take in the French onion dip, and ask someone, is this good? It just doesn't make any sense. Now, I'm half joking, but it is a real problem. If I have traffic having a hairpin to an appliance, I'm limited in throughput, I'm limited in how I can control that traffic, and it also introduces other problems which I'll get into later. The number 4 reason that I think IDS is a big deal in NSXT is consistency. Now, I explain why from an efficiency standpoint, why it makes sense to have IDS intelligence built right into the workload itself. But let's talk about what happens when things move. It is a changing world. We lose hardware, we move things around, we do migrations. What happens when we move a VM from, we'll say, a host over here to a host over here? What happens to my IDS policy? In many cases, it can break if I'm using traditional IDS because I'm having to do some router hacks to get the traffic over to the IDS in the first place. What if I didn't route appropriately to that IDS and I just let that one workload go straight out to the internet? Now I'm not doing IDS at all, and I'm at risk to be violating compliance and regulations and all kinds of other trouble that I don't want anything to do with. So with NSX-T, having the IDS built right into the workload, it also moves with the workload. So let's say in that example, you vMotion a VM. Not only do your firewall rules from NSX-T move with the VM, but now also your IDS policies. So you don't even have to think about it, it just happens. And the number 5 reason that I think IDS and NSXT is worth taking a look at is scale. When you add hosts to an NSXT domain, it definitely increases your scale from a distributed firewalling standpoint. And that's because all of the intelligence is distributed throughout the network. So we're enforcing things on every workload, on every host, on every container, or even public cloud. And it could be an EC2 instance, for example. So we're distributing all of that intelligence from a firewall standpoint. Now with IDS, we're doing the same thing. So we're not stuck with this appliance that is very limited. And let's be honest, getting an IDS appliance that can take the full throughput of an entire data center is difficult, if not impossible. I haven't seen one big enough to handle an entire data center on its own. And the other problem comes in, what about management? If I do find one, I still have to figure out how to manage it, and it's gonna be managed differently than my firewall, and it just creates a lot of problems. So I personally think it's a really big deal that you can manage all of your firewall, your security policy, all of your IDS, all of your signatures, and then also all of your networking, all of your logical switches, your routers, multi-tenant environments, all of that through one tool only, and that's NSXT Manager. So I'm sorry that this does sound like a sales pitch, guys, but these are my honest thoughts on the topic. So you feel free to disagree, drop it in the comments, let me know what you think. If you do find this video useful or liked it, be sure to hit like and subscribe so you can get updates on future videos. That being said, I appreciate the time today, everyone. I hope everyone's staying safe and healthy. Have a good one. Man, I'm sweating. Got a lot of trash in here. Kind of look like a superhero when I do that, right? I don't know, you can't see it. I got like my arms on my hips, like real superhero-like. I don't know. It's an IT thing.